Imagine this. You've got 15 listings, maybe 25. You're busy. Revenue's coming in. Owners trust you. But if you disappear for a week, everything slows. That's not a business. That's a job with helpers. Today on The Check-In, we're talking about the line most operators miss. The moment where a hosting business either becomes real or quietly caps itself forever. Welcome to The Check-In.
Welcome back, everybody. This week, we are so pleased to welcome Charles Mullany, the CEO and founder of Host Genius. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sarah.
Charles, it's great to see you, my friend. And also quite a miracle we've managed to find a day across 3 time zones that works for all of us. I mean, sorry, find an hour that works for all of us is great. So, Charles, tell us a little bit more about Host Genius.
So I started my property management company in 2018, about a year and a half before COVID started. And I got to just 100 properties March 2022 or 2020. And then Canada shut down the US border and the international border for about 2 years. So we slowly went down all the way to about 25 properties again. It was a nightmare. But during that time, I started a design subscription company that we scaled up to about 150,000 MRR. And I learned a lot about running a company outside of this space. And when COVID finally, slowed down, whatever, and the US border opened up again, we scaled back up to 160 properties in under a year. I mean, by then we already had the number 1 SEO position, but we did everything we could. We took them some terrible homeowners too and made some mistakes. And then more regulations are coming. So I was actually going to go down portfolio again, but I was so hooked to having a business and not a job that about 2 years ago, we created this private network of vacation rental managers that we come together to resource pool. And from then we got 43 of us, 1,600 properties, all in the US, and it's been an incredible learning experience.
That's a really interesting concept that you brought up, Charles, the difference between a job and a business. Tell me more about exactly what you mean by that, and how do you know if you just have a job or if you're actually running a business?
I think the whole job versus business thing is a dangerous drug because I remember back in 2022 or 3, I was visiting with family to Italy, and I was going to the Duomo, and I was like, wow, this is the coolest building I ever saw, was what I was saying to everyone around me. But internally, I was like ridiculously stressed because I was so focused on owning a business where I could go away for an extended period of time that I was spending a ton of money on salaries and staff. So it's really dangerous in this space. But I'd say the difference is if you can go away for 30 days and your business doesn't fall apart, like it continues to grow and continues to operate because you don't have a job within it, then you have a business. That's not to say that we're not on the way to making a business when we're smaller, but if we are the operator, even if we have a couple virtual assistants, we're more similar to like maybe a lawyer at a law firm, right? Like we have a book of customers. So I'd say that's the core difference. It's not the brand. It's not a nice website. It's not telling everyone. It's being able to step away. I'm not talking just one night, at least 30 days, and the business continues to grow as well. It's just tough with these boutique businesses. But that's the difference.
Very interesting. Why do you think so many owners think they have a company when they actually don't?
Because I think the identity of being an entrepreneur is so important to us. Like, a lot of us, maybe this is our first business. And like, I remember, for example, when I first jumped into the property management space, I would, when I had 20 properties, I would, tell everyone I've got a big business, I'm running this large thing. And I'd go to people's houses and they'd be like, how's your little business going? And it would be the most offensive thing you could possibly say to me back then. It's like, it's not a little business, it's a big business. But it was just me and a friend driving around, managing Airbnbs, doing our best. Airbnb only, no PMS back then too. Didn't even know about that. So I think it's more identity thing, but I think it's actually, you should flip it the other way around, because if you realize right now, this is what a business is, like having to be on call 24/7, having to answer all the messages, having to do everything yourself, maybe again, a virtual assistant. If you think that's what a business is, that's a little defeating. But knowing that, okay, in the future, you can actually own something that generates you cash and you don't have to be super involved in it and you just get to do the fun stuff too, because as CEO, we have the best job in the world. We just do the stuff we want to do. I think that's the thing that you should hold on to instead of the thing I used to hold on to of I've got a big business.
It kind of reminds me of, I'm super into investment and all these kinds of hacks and fire and stuff. And it reminds me a lot of when people are talking about, I just want passive income. I want passive income. But so many times the way that they get passive income is, oh, I'm going to buy 5 rental properties. And then they end up doing all the management and everything themselves. And it turns into a full-time job rather than passive income, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. And so I guess I'm curious if you would draw that same parallel. And also if you were trying to get to a point where you're not just having what's not even passive income, but a job, what's the first step that somebody or a property manager would need to take to start getting to a point where they're no longer integral to the day-to-day operations of the business?
Okay. So first question, passive income. I'm not sure if that truly exists in many ways. Like for example, even if you're buying a rental property, you have to deal with the tenant. I'd say the closest thing maybe is if you had a rental property and an incredible property manager managing it. But even then, you still have to deal with what if something goes majorly wrong? You have to deal with your taxes. I mean, maybe if you're an executive assistant managing your property manager, or chief of staff, right? Then that's probably the closest I'd say to passive income. But I think the opposite. I think people are so focused on getting passive income because they hate the forms, they hate the activities that they're currently doing to get income. But if you think about it, if you had your property management business and it had, let's say, 85 properties, and you're doing about a million or so a year in commission, I'm talking, a management commission, maybe cleaning fee profit, maybe upsells, like that's your $1 million a year. You could hire almost every single seat filled in that bus, and they would run as a business, and you would be left over with the only things that you actually want to do. And for some people that's developing the team, for some people that's finding new homeowners, for some people that's partnerships, for some people that's maybe now investing in real estate themselves. Like you can do anything you want. Like the CEO at the final role can just do the things that they want to do because the things that they want to do they're really good at, and then they'll be more pleasant to be around, they'll do a better job, they'll grow the business and grow everyone's careers. But that's me jumping to the very end, right? If we take a step backwards, the first one I would say is going to be, and I hate the word virtual assistant. I think it's like too all encompassing. I think more of an executive assistant, like somebody that comes in, and don't give them a title. Like I think people, the biggest mistake, they're like, I'm hiring a maintenance manager or like an online virtual one. Or I'm hiring like a guest support rep. Hire just an everything person. Like hire an executive assistant who's a generalist at everything that can come in and just give them shit on your calendar for you and be like, hey, these are the 40 hours of things I hate doing. Do you love doing this and are you good at it? And if they say yes to both and they're actually good at it, and prove it. And if they're not good within a week, it's never going to happen, by the way. People don't change. If they're not good within a week, then give them that stuff and you get 40 hours back. And the beauty is that some people like bookkeeping. Some people like dealing with angry people. It's like, I don't know, they're like practicing to be a therapist or something, right? Like some people like this stuff. Me, well, I don't mind angry people actually. Sometimes it's fun, but bookkeeping, not for me. So I give people the stuff I don't want to do. And I used to think that was selfish, but it's not because some people like that stuff. Like people hate sales, for example. They hate calling people up. I love calling people.
Yeah. As someone that's had many phone calls with you, Charles, I can attest to that. You definitely like a phone call at all hours of the day, very happily. That's true, isn't it? So you're finding someone who potentially is your polar opposite there in personality type, because it's about how you can grow your collective brain. That's, I think, what growing a business is, right? It's like the idea that if you go and play a pub quiz with five of your friends and you've all been best mates since you were four, there's not much chance you're going to win that quiz. Whereas if you get
Uh,
a team of real randoms together from different sides of the pub, you might well win I mean, I've been in this scenario, you might well win the quiz. And I like this concept, this idea of like, and it should be praised. It shouldn't be seen as lazy or backward thinking. It's like, find someone who has the opposite skill set to you. And then see if they're willing to come and use their time doing those things for you. How quickly did you learn that lesson? Did you realize that was what you needed to do?
5 years. Yeah, I went through 5 years of not knowing. I read this book called Buy Back Your Time when I was actually right after that trip I mentioned in Italy. I read it on the plane ride back, and that was pretty life changing. I was like, okay, hold on a minute. You're basically buying your time back with every single role that you do. And I still have to remind myself today, like if I go hire somebody, my immediate thought is, I need this role. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Like sometimes even within your team, like you could look at buying, like let's say you already have the EA and you already have maybe like a general manager. You could look at getting that general manager's time back so that they can do more versus hiring like another. I think so people are focused on entire roles. So it took me 5 years, but your explanation was great. You probably won't really, you'll like this person a lot because you'll like work with them really, really well, but they're not probably someone you would immediately go to the pub with because, right, they're not going to be like you at all. They're going to be complete opposites, but it's amazing.
Is there a revenue tipping point, Charles, at which this makes sense? Because I'm thinking, okay, imagine I have 15 properties and maybe I'm net profiting 5 grand a year in these properties after I pay for all of my expenses. At what point does it actually make sense to outsource that? Or do you have to be willing to, in order to get to that ideal state of being just the CEO and only doing the things you want, do you have to sacrifice revenue?
I would say the executive assistant hire. So you can hire an executive assistant for 12 to 1500 a month. Like we're talking a virtual assistant. Like I'd say it's different levels. Like at my level right now, I tried the whole executive assistant thing again. I now moved on to something called a chief of staff instead, who just kind of handles everything for me on like a higher level, like somebody who's in my office with me, and I could say the most terrible explanation possible, and he'll still understand and get it done. I tried virtual assistants and I had an incredible one back in the day when that's what I could afford. And she was life changing in the business and she was $2,200 a month in Argentina, but like life changing. I flew down, I met her in Argentina too. And she helped me grow the business. That I would say that hire of 15 to 22, I do soon as possible. But it feels so much better to do it when there's value to your time. So if you're not growing your business, because I think property managers, they don't grow their business. They kind of just wait for it. Like name a in any other business in the world, people just wait for their business to grow. But property managers, I think 80% of them are doing that. So if you figure out a growth channel, which I think we're talking about later, and then you say, oh shoot, I spend 5 hours of my time, I get this back. Well, I don't want to do this like $1 to $5 an hour work anymore. So then I would jump on it as fast as possible. But completely out the business, it's probably honestly a million a year, realistically, in commission. Completely out. We're talking owners, sales, marketing, like that's best case scenario.
Okay. And how do you train those people to let go? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, the reason they're entrepreneurs is they don't like relinquishing power and control. So how do you train those people and or how do you get comfortable handing over the reins to certain tasks?
It's another thing I'm gonna steal from the book. They call it the 10-80-10. You do the first 10% with people, you line it out exactly what needs to be done, and then they do the 80%, the middle part, and then you look at the last piece with them. So nothing goes to production without you looking at it first, but at least you get that 80% time back. But also, I don't hire people I have to create SOPs for. Like I've never really created SOPs for people because it's like, damn, if I got to tell you the exact process and how to do something, then I'm gonna be hooked to that forever, which is tough. I've had a lot of people burn out. I've got a couple bad Glassdoor reviews submit, so I'm not necessarily. It's the perfect scenario, but I do think that I've found now a solid team that they just get it and they get it done, including like this is not like a $100,000 a salary thing. Like there are some people that, virtual assistants that can just get stuff done. They're good at that. So I would even push back on like building the exact perfect processes, but like I do understand you don't want to hire someone to be like, here, homeowners, here's my point of contact without checking any of it. So you want to like audit everything that they're doing to start off with and not set anything out to production until you look at it, potentially ever. Even now, like if I'm pushing something out, I'll just 10-80-10. But the amount
Yeah,
of leverage that you get, if they're doing 8 hours for every 1 hour you do with them, you're starting to get leverage.
Yeah, I like the 10-80-10 approach, Charles. I also kind of agree with you on the point of you don't necessarily need to have everything laid out and a full training manual. And if you do, you've potentially hired the wrong person if your business is not ready to have everything like operationalized. And I'd assume in like property management where things can change the whole time depending on what's going on in stay, you need people that can think on their feet, right? So what I feel like, what I'm hearing so far, and we'll go into this further and further, what I'm hearing so far is that you trust is a very, very big part of this for you, right? You've got to trust this person to do that 80% because you really are not on, you're not going to be looking over the shoulder while they're doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I'll see that end. Like they could do the 80%, it could be the worst thing in the world. But when they bring it back to me, I'm gonna see it's the worst thing in the world before I push it out. And if it's the worst thing in the world and it's like actually bad, then you should just never try again. Like that should be caught in the test project if it's seriously bad. But if it's a misunderstanding, generally, like because I'm terrible at explaining things, then at least we've caught it before it goes out to production. So it's not like I'm blindly trusting like they're managing everything without me noticing.
Yeah.
Actually, but the problem is like the 10-80-10 works really well for like projects. But if it's something like, hey, can you schedule these cleaners? I mean, some of it is trust and check. You want to hire someone that's meticulous. Yeah, you just got to check for a bit. I've got pretty lucky. Actually, no, we've had some terrible people. That's not true. No, I think you just have to check. No, we've made some huge mistakes. I got lucky. I don't know what I'm saying. You do have to hire people that's meticulous. Like it's a really good question if you can't do a 10-80-10 of like, can you schedule these vendors or can you schedule the cleaners? And it's like they just go schedule the cleaners and you check. After a while, you need to like, build in. My biggest thing is when I look at my processes, I want to find an easy way to check if everything was done. Like if a process involves a human taking something from one place and bringing it to another, they're going to make a mistake there. So if you can find a way to integrate the two tools, or maybe on like your operation software, you can clearly see how many unscheduled tasks there are. So you don't have to check each individual one. Like that VA's job is to check each individual one, but you can easily see on your dashboard if things are done. That's probably the best option for the small things that you can't do the 1080/10 on.
I was just curious to kind of go back from the perspective of somebody who is saying, okay, I have, let's say, 15 listings right now. I want to grow my business. My goal is to get to 60, 70 listings in the next 12 to 18 months. I don't want to burn out. I probably am not going to have the capital or the revenue to get that assistance until I get to that kind of 60, 70. So imagine that is your scenario. What do you do to make sure that you don't completely throw in the towel before you reach the goal?
Got it. So, I mean, specifically though, on the with the number of properties, like you should make $700 to $1,000 in commission per property. So at 15 properties, they should be getting a virtual assistant right away. But let's say we reverse that down to like 5 properties and they want to get to 15 to start off with. I'd say the number one thing they want to do is focus on like outbound. Like if in the US, for example, you can search literally like the owner's contact information based on addresses and you can find a virtual assistants on Fiverr because you're going to want to get to that growth target as fast as possible. I see most people plateau at 20 listings, 50 listings, and like then 80 to 100. Generally, when you have 80 to 100, if you have a good business, like low churn, your referrals will actually get you to 100 probably over time, or you've ideally figured out something along the way. But I would focus on that is outbound. If you're in an urban market, you want to focus on SEO. I actually received hundreds of leads from SEO in Vancouver, but I also know people in like Michigan who get like one a decade maybe. So don't focus on that then. Nobody in Michigan might, or like, obviously there's like cities there too, but like in like the general, like large areas that they generally take on. I don't know why I just met many people in Michigan now. No one's Googling it then. They get in like no search volume. So they want to do that as fast as possible. And if they can go out there and get one homeowner, right? They know how to get one homeowner. They call up 100, 20 of them answer, 5 of them take a meeting, 1 of them signs up. Then they're like, cool, my time is worth this. And I've also just got $1,000 a month from this new owner. Put that towards a virtual assistant, get 40 hours back and just go on that relentlessly. And then find a way to, you don't have to do it forever. You could also just do cold email versus cold calling. Obviously check the rules and stuff like that. I want to say I'm not like a lawyer or anything. Every state might be different. You can place someone in that role and take it over for you. But you do want to not wait for your growth and also never stop growing because the moment you lose momentum, if you take like a month or 2 months off, it ends up coming 4 or 5 months because you're optimizing your business. You're never going to grow that fast. You're not a Volvo or a Casa, right? Not that you want to be, but like, with 0 to 80 listings in what? Even if you do that in 3 years and that's like 2 a month, yeah, it's not that crazy. So I would say they continuously go, get the outbound. And when they hit 50 listings, they should try and do an acquisition and buy another company. It's cheaper than it sounds.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure Sarah's got a few questions. There's a few different things I'd like to talk about first. I like this aggressively outbounding, to try and get yourself to the target that you want to be. Don't wait for referral growth alone. Obviously, there comes a tipping point where referral growth might get you there if you've got enough owners already and you're doing a good enough job to support them. But with that cold emailing, cold calling, when would you, Charles, or someone in your trusted team step in? Where would you see yourself entering the process? Are you hands-on? Do you go and do that owner conversation in person? Do you sign them up? Like how much of your time does that take?
You're talking about the owner of the property management business? Yeah, I would go meet the owners in person. So the biggest mistake, another biggest mistake, they can't all be the biggest mistake, but another one that I see people make is they hire a salesperson in their business because they're like, I don't know how to grow. I'm going to hire a salesperson. Salespeople close deals. You don't have a deal closing problem. I bet most people's conversion rate is almost 100% because it's their niece's cousin's plumber's friend or something. So a salesperson is a huge waste of money unless they're cold calling or cold emailing for you and going out and getting business. But you should still figure it out yourself because like, what are you going to say that works or not work? So I would say the last role you replace is the person closing it because a homeowner is probably worth, let's say we're saying they make 60,000 a year, 20, let's say 25% commission with upsells. It's probably about 15K a year. They stay for 4 years, right? We're talking, $60,000. Are you going to go send a random person to go collect your $60,000 from that? You know what I mean? It's certainly worth your time. Like homeowner contracts are just worth so much. Like they're the most valuable thing that we have. And I would never hand someone a $60,000 money bag and trust them to walk to the bank, right? I'm going to walk to the bank for myself. So if they've done all the work, you've done all the work of building that company, have a good brand recognition, you should show up and close that deal. And then maybe when one deal means nothing to you because, you've already had 70, 80 properties, then you can hire someone. But start off with someone who does the calling and generates the leads for you, because that's the part that sucks. That's the part where it's like, hey, you're interested in selling my property management company? And they're like, fuck off. And then they hang up on you, right? That's the part that you want to replace first. But that sucks, calling people. And by the way, that hardly actually happens. That's just a big scary thing. So do the calls yourself in the meantime, too.
I like that. I really do. I share that mentality. I agree. I think when we were talking to you about doing this episode, I kind of thought to myself, I'd imagine that is the last role that people give away, or if the ones that are doing it really well and a growth focus, growth mindset will give that away last. But the very front of that funnel, obviously you can use AI more and more now for increasing that front of funnel element. But like, yeah, the coal face of that, I would imagine people do try and give that away, but I imagine it's really useful to dip back in and hear what the objections are and really understand them. So you've walked that mile because it will reveal so much about where the industry's at and where your business is at. Sarah, sorry, go on. I've been hogging the questions.
I'm curious about owner retention because we've talked a lot about growth. We've talked a lot about adding properties. But what I often hear when I speak with property managers is this leaky bucket. So it's like, okay, hey, I'm getting, 20 new properties a year, but maybe I'm losing 5 or I'm losing 10. And so if they can't plug that hole, then what's the solution for that? Is it more outreach and more properties? Or is there something more fundamental that they need to look at in the business? And how do you scale, I guess, is the real question without sacrificing quality and without losing the properties that, as you mentioned, are worth a lot. A new homeowner's worth a lot, and you've worked hard to get them in the door.
So for owner retention, I think it really depends on why the reason they're leaving. If they're leaving because they're selling their property or their, niece is an SDR manager now, or like the standard reasons that you can't do anything about, that's just a acknowledgement that, yeah, you need to increase growth because churn is a percentage based on your portfolio size. If you have 100 properties, and this only happens when you have like probably 70 to 100 properties, because when you have 10, it could just be that nobody wants to sell their property and nobody ever quits. And then people are like, I got 100% retention. I'll never lose an owner. And then I met a guy today who's got 4 and 3 of them are quitting. So he's got 75% churn, but it's one guy with 3 properties. So it's until you're a big number, you can't claim what your actual retention is unless it's like bad. So I would say you need to look at sales velocity, and that's why you need to actually build a sales machine, get someone taking it over, move to the next thing. You want to have it like 3 or 4 ways of growing when you hit 100 properties. No, that's not even 2 or 3 realistically. So get outbound up, place somebody that generates leads for you, and then that's it. Like have a scorecard. So every single week they fill a number of dials, number of connects, conversion rate, and then just track those metrics and then like call it a system. So you can like look away for a week and people are not closing, but they're coming into your pipeline. Then move to the next thing and do like realtor partnerships because actually going in and really focusing on one thing and then growth stacking is where you get success. The other option though the other side of it is if you actually have bad owner churn. I think the reason most people have owner churn, and I'm talking not like good property managers, like people with 4 point, like they're doing good work. I think they lose it over. I think it's owners are tough, dude. Homeowners are maybe one of the worst people that you'll ever meet in some case scenarios. Like there's something about it that causes immense stress for some people that like a property manager and homeowner relationship sometimes is just horrible. And I think as a property manager, you got to just put your ego out the way. Like I would recommend you read the book Never Split the Difference and use it as a great opportunity to practice dealing with people because you'll have them. And it is your fault a little bit too, because they'll be like, I'm not making enough money. And then I had this property manager say, he doesn't know. They don't know that we're actually beating the market. What is he talking about? This homeowner's a dumbass. And it's like, well, did you tell the owner they're beating the market? No. Well, how the heck are they supposed to know? You know what I mean? So I would say you put the ego aside and be like, okay, why is this owner complaining about this? He may be saying it in horrible ways. And don't keep horrible homeowners. I'm talking like, they just don't say it very kindly sometimes. You got to give them the info, give them the data that you're performing against the market because revenue is down and their friends are making a killing in 2022 and 2023, and now they're not anymore. So you just need to educate them constantly that you're on their side and it's not like a battle. But I'd say that's the number one form of churn. And if you're a terrible property manager and you're getting like a 4.3 or something, you just need to fix that. You need to be a good property manager because you will not be able to keep up your level of growth in the future to the churn that you will have if you're bad. And you'll have to pay someone commission to do it too. So it'll be extremely tough.
Incredibly interesting. I could keep asking you questions about this all day, Charles. I knew this would be a very in-depth discussion about it. I've got one more question before we kind of go to a more of a wrap on this. What do you think typically breaks first when people try and scale beyond the norms of like 10, 15, 20 and go up to the 70s and 80s? Like, What's the kind of big stress in your business that you haven't considered at 20 listings?
It's probably unfortunately the fact that there's just so many things to do. Like it's different for every single person. For example, if you run a SaaS business, let's say, you have it's obviously extremely hard to build a product and make sure product market fit and sell it. But at the end of the day, like you have support, you build the product, you engineer it, or you design the product, engineer it, you market it, you sell it, and you have support on that one product. But if you're a property management company, you have revenue, accounting, cleaning, supplies, maintenance, guest support, owner support, insurance, damage rate, all these different things that you got to do. So I think the difficulty is there's just so many different pieces to do, and that gets overwhelming. But in most people, it's going to be the cleaning. And I think that what this is, so just to add on what I said, that's like what I just say, 10 responsibilities. Then people are like, cleaning is tough. I'm going to start an in-house cleaning business. And then they have two businesses suddenly and all the things related to that too. And they just take on so many different things. Then they have to do in-house maintenance. Now, sometimes that's necessary. Like I had to do in-house cleaning in one market because there was like a cleaning mafia on the island and they were like screwing everyone over and we had no other choice. But my best cleaning experience that I ever had is working with one company, like a small company. They've got like 6 or 7 cleaners, and we're their only customer. We paid them 700,000 a year in cleaning fees, right? And she could have run that on one fraction of the amount, just less cleaners. But she also works part time in my company as a general manager, so almost like a really in depth partnership. So I don't have to think about that, and that solves so many problems because 99% of questions from guests are about the property and the cleaning. Like, is it ready for me to check in? Where did I lose it? I left a jacket. Where is it? Right. So having that person work in house can solve so many of my problems because later what will break, to kind of summarize this all up, is managing all those 10 different pieces. Like, oh, revenue wants this, guest wants this, cleaning wants this. I got to make this resolution claim. And it's like the connecting all the dots, even when you have people in place. That I'd say that's probably the way to solve that problem as soon as possible.
I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, but I would say kind of central themes that we've covered today is first and foremost, you may not actually have a business, even though you think you do. You might actually just have a job. And the way to get around that is to outsource. You have to be able to earn back your time. I loved the concept of, you kind of running us through the numbers because what I really see in that is you can't afford not to hire, for example, that Jack or Jane of all trades as early as possible to take off some of that load. And then as you grow, it's going to become really evident what is wrong, what you're not doing well, what you're doing superbly well, how you're winning new owners as you do that outreach. So I love that. Is there anything else that you can think of that you would say is an absolute must-have for starting, growing, and scaling a property management business successfully and not losing your mind in the process?
Do you think, just to clarify about that whole, not having a business and a job is a really, really nice thing to hold on to, knowing that what you're going through right now and working really like, it's not necessarily long hours vacation rental management, it's random long hours because it's sometimes at 10, sometimes at this. That, although sometimes questions our identity a little bit by saying it's a job and not a business, because the whole point is we wanted to leave our jobs to create businesses. I think if you really hear it as, okay, what I'm experiencing right now is the early stages, and later when I get it to a position that I can hire people and step away from it, like that is a legit thing that can happen, is what'll get you through the tough times. So if you hear it the wrong way, it's just an attack on ourselves. If you hear it the right way, it's like, great, things are like immensely better. Like, for example, I would say out of what I have with my property management company, this collective and the design, I'd say my life is probably substantially easier than most property managers with 30 properties and better, right? At least on the business side, right? So it's good. Like it's good. Like it's good that things get better as you grow. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to grow because it's going to get harder. No, it's easier. Like the guy for Vicasa, everyone hates on Vicasa. I think he's got $100 million. I think he lives an all right life now. So yeah, like you don't want to become Vicasa in a big, necessarily not a great property management company, bad for your community, but like you can do both. You can build a good business in your community that's a legitimate business, that's a brand, have like locals in place and a virtual team, and then you can just do the things that you want to do. It's possible, and honestly, you can do it in 3 years.
Charles, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Such great insights. Tell us, where can people find you if they want to ask advice or have a conversation with you?
I'd say it seems like a lot of us in this community are on LinkedIn. So Charles Mullany on LinkedIn, but we also host if anyone's interested on the owner acquisition side, which is probably the topic I spoke about the most, every second Tuesday we do a roundtable with the 43 people part of our community on exactly what's working in owner acquisition. It's primarily in the US, apart from me in Canada. But every second Tuesday we do one. So if anyone's curious about growing their business, send me a message in LinkedIn and maybe we can get you a guest pass to one of those upcoming roundtables.
Amazing. Great. Thank you, Charles. Excellent. Well, look, what a great episode to everyone at home. If you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe in all the usual social places, and we'll see you again next week.